Hi everybody, I'm Rob Scott from UC Today, and today we're going to be talking about how speech recognition can save the contact center. So before we get started, I'd like to welcome our guest speakers. We've got Jeff Palmer, VP of Sales at Speechmatics, and Mark Summerson, VP of API Partners at Vonage. So thank you for joining us today.
Well, welcome.
Hi.
Thanks for having us.
Pleasure to be here.
No problem. So Jeff, just over to you to start with. Can we do a quick bio and tell me a little bit about Speechmatics and what you do for them?
Yeah, sure. So I've been with Speechmatics for a while now. I'm VP of Sales, so effectively run and lead the sales teams that help generate revenue for the company, help essentially spread the messaging throughout the globe. We're a global business about how we can help our organizations, customers innovate with voice technology. So by innovate with voice technology, what I mean is allowing our customers, who typically are partners like Vonage, platform system integrators, as well as some large direct organizations, help them build applications that effectively require mission critical, accurate speech recognition at scale. So we're on a global basis helping those organizations, typically enterprise organizations, derive meaning from speech, from the spoken word, to allow applications to interpret that data and perform actions and derive further meaning and analysis, and assist agents in the contact center deliver value to their end customers.
Great stuff. Thanks, Jeff. Over to you, Mark. Can you give us a quick intro, please?
Yeah, sure. So the Vonage API platform has been used by some of the largest digital brands in the world to create the most compelling customer experience for their end consumers. We often quote customers that include the likes of Uber, Grab, Lyft, Booking.com, and there's plenty of material on our website that talks about those use cases. What we're now seeing is that to replicate that level of customer service, the enterprise market is now wanting to meet that same level, that high bar that the digital companies have set in terms of driving for the best level of customer service or customer experience. And what that typically means is it's a combination of artificial intelligence technologies and our APIs that together can create that programmable, customized experience between a brand and their consumers. And in the case of our relationship with Speechmatics, then obviously those two go fairly much hand in hand as their technology can interrogate and derive insights from voice calls across our platform.
Fantastic. And so today I'm really interested to hear more how that relationship works and how you bring those technologies together. So Jeff, just to kick off with then, I find speech technology fascinating. I think there's so much happening in this category right now. Can you start by firstly kind of defining for our viewers what speech technology is exactly?
Okay, sure. So quite often when you say speech recognition or speech technology, their immediate reaction is to think about Alexa or Siri. You know, that's where they quite often go in terms of when you talk about speech technology. If you try and imagine these things in quadrants, like on a Gartner quadrant, effectively, and you have complex conversations essentially at the top, short conversations or what we call utterances, i.e. commands, what's the weather like today, at the bottom, and then you have consumers over one side and enterprises at the other. We fit very much in the top right-hand corner of that quadrant. So we're very focused, like Vonage, on dealing with enterprise customers with complex use cases to effectively derive meaning and automate as many tasks as possible. So when we talk about speech recognition, we talk about complex conversations and helping organizations take, sometimes in real time, but sometimes what we call post-call, essentially convert speech into a highly accurate transcription to then allow downstream applications to effectively trigger actions. Now, those actions could be to derive insights on a historical basis. It could be that we actually want to derive insights in real time to allow us to action something. So speech recognition has been around for years and years and years, but it's now only coming to the point where it's so advanced, and we've been at the forefront of that advancement. We're genuinely seen as one of the leading pure play automatic speech recognition companies on the planet. That's all we actually focus on. So it allows organisations like Vonage, which have got a broad offering, which is a platform play, to actually take the best-in-class ASR, automatic speech recognition technology, embed it into their platform to allow their end customers to actually have the most experience and be able to derive the most meaning, and effectively, in some instances, replace the human for certain parts of transactions that are very labour-intensive, because we've got speech recognition now to a point where it is so accurate that you no longer need that manual intervention. So it is still, as people would know speech recognition from old, it's still the process of effectively converting speech into text, but we've now done it at such scale, with such flexibility and such accuracy, that it's to the point now where it never has been before. So it's truly a useful technology, whereas before it was trying to solve a problem without actually reaching maturity.
Yeah, I'd certainly echo that, because I remember working with it 10 years ago or more, and the technology was a bit glitchy. It wouldn't particularly pick up on the dialects very well and that kind of thing. But it seems even in our personal lives now, that it seems to have come on a long way. So,
yeah, we've worked really hard across a long period of time to solve some of those challenges. So some of those challenges are the dialect challenge. Quite often people say, will it pick me up if I talk in a thick Scottish accent, or a French person speaking English? Will it still be able to understand? And we've got some very advanced capabilities to allow what we call global language models to be deployed. So it doesn't matter what dialect you speak of a certain language. It doesn't matter if you're a non-native speaker of the language that you're actually conversing in. Our technology is so advanced, it solves those problems without you having to think about it as the implementer of that technology stack. So technology has moved on a lot since those days of almost using speech recognition to just try and broadly define call reason in the contact center. We now get to the point where we're so accurate a human can't tell the difference between the transcription and effectively what would have been a manual process of transcribing that call, which is very costly and time consuming.
Yeah. Mark, what kinds of challenges are your customers facing, and kind of how are they using speech technology or speech recognition to solve those challenges?
Yeah, so firstly, you've got to think about the scale of this. And our customers are typically global organizations. And with that comes all the complexity that Jeff was just talking about, from different languages and dialects, etc. So you've got to consider that mix first, which is one of the challenges all our customers face. Once you're in a position whereby you've got that extremely highly accurate voice recognition technology in there, that then enables you as an organization to start to really take advantage of the data analytics and the meaning and the intention of the voice conversation, and bake that into a workflow. Now, when I talk about baking that into a workflow, you're then trying to establish not just the intention, as Jeff was saying, but you're trying to shape that conversation between a customer agent and a consumer, and help them, with insights into the conversation in real time. Perhaps you can come across use cases now in some of the more regulated industries, for example, where that intelligence that goes with the automatic speech recognition can be used to consider things like compliance, for example. It could be used for real-time coaching of agents in a contact center around the call that's happening there and then. So it's not just about, can we understand what the conversation was about and post-call analyze what went on. There's so many options now around real-time intelligence being applied to a conversation that can improve the way that a business is interacting with their customers. So for us to have that accuracy at our core through partners like Speechmatics, then we're in a position then that we can really take this to all of our global customers. and in a meaningful way, and watch them create the magic in terms of how they serve their customers.
Yeah, I'd really agree with that, Mark. So a great explanation, but it really is that the real time is where I think the massive opportunity is for this industry. And if you play back how real time speech recognition in connection with a platform like Vonage could have prevented certain things from happening, historical things happening, specifically within the finance industry. If you look at the PPI, we'll call it scandal, the PPI issues that the finance industry have faced, it's cost tens of billions of pounds. Effectively, that was down to, in broad terms, mis-selling of product. If you imagine a world where you design what a compliant conversation looks like, and you physically cannot complete that transaction if that conversation has not been compliant, you're not retrospectively having to go back and dig through old records from years and years and years ago to uncover and unearth the full extent of that non-compliance. You are literally stopping it in its tracks before it is happening. So when you look at how you can apply speech recognition today, it's a completely different concept to historically transcribing a conversation for agent training after the event. If you had a scenario where if certain phrases, if certain things either have or haven't been said at certain stages of a conversation, you are triggering actions. You're bringing in a supervisor. You're notifying certain people within a compliance team that a compliant, non-compliant call is potentially in progress. You can stop those things happening. That could have had an immense positive impact on the financial services industry if those types of solutions had have been in place when we're still coming out the back of those types of crises that the industry had faced.
That's a really interesting perspective, isn't it, on the conversation around, I mean, that takes call scripting to a whole different level, doesn't it? Being able to kind of in real time detect the conversation and
So at its most basic level, if you are having a conversation with a contact center agent and any form of profanity is used from either the agent or, more worryingly, your contact center agent, there's something going wrong in that conversation. Just at its most basic level, if there is shouting of any sort, if there is crosstalk, if any form of profanity is being used, that conversation isn't going particularly well. So to have the ability to immediately, alert a supervisor that something is going wrong on a call, to assist an agent, potentially that agent being in quite a stressful situation at that time, assuming they're not the one using the profanity, then that's something where you can intervene and help and support your resources within your business that are the front line to your customers. So again, it's not a lot of use being able to interrogate that call in 3 weeks' time when you may or may not pick it up in a post-call quality monitoring exercise. Which typically the sample rates are so small, you're sampling 1% of calls, for example. Well, how do you dig through those 1% of calls to actually get to the point where you're basically looking at and monitoring and reviewing the calls where there's been an issue? Now, I know there's basic speech analytics tools that can do that, but they still don't get down to that level of being able to identify those calls in real time to stop the issue occurring in the first place.
Mark, what's the impact been like on your customers? Have you spoken to any of your customers, experienced this kind of in the real-time kind of sentiment analysis or with the real-time application of speech recognition? I find amazing, really. And what impact does that have on a contact center?
Well, I think the use cases we're talking about there are becoming much more commonplace. The speech analytics doesn't need to be around again, it's back to this, it doesn't need to be around post-call. There's so many use cases that are during the call where you can apply that technology. So an example would be rather than looking at this from a compliance perspective, think about real-time coaching. So if you've got an agent who's having a conversation with a customer, and through the tone, the speed of delivery, keywords, etc., that you can detect that actually this conversation isn't going very well, what guidance would you give to that agent in real time to help them out of a hole, so to speak, because the conversation not going well? Tell them to stop talking about a particular product. You're starting to see these types of use cases evolve and people are starting to consider how you can apply this across a vast array of processes within the contact center and different scenarios. So it's there already. There's a bunch of very advanced use cases already people are formulating and trying to get into their contact center. And I think over the next 12 plus months, we're going to start to see a lot more prevalence of those real-time applications of speech recognition.
Thing is, Mark, is and we see it obviously as organisations that we work with rolling out proof of concepts, etc. But I always, when I go into contact centres, I always feel for the agents because their lives are more stressful than ever now. You have customers who are basically contacting those organisations who are more informed quite often than the contact centre agent. And that contact centre agent is doing the same thing quite often, 100, 150 times a day. So it's quite a stressful environment.
Yep.
And these types of tools where you can help guide the agent in real time based on what is being said, what is being requested, surfacing knowledge content, opening the right order form, all of the things that an agent is having to do very repetitively. If this technology can assist in effectively making their lives a little less stressful, they're able to provide a better service just because they're in a better place personally.
Absolutely. I came across a project probably a couple of months ago now in the UK, and there was a use case in the financial services sector whereby the organisation in question here, with their wealth managers, were using ASR as a way to summarise and take notes from customer meetings, so they could look at they could look at keywords, they could look at from an archiving and audit perspective, they had that data to look back on. And they weren't doing that just from a perspective of, oh, we've got to be compliant. They're actually looking at it from the perspective of, if we take that workload off the person who's having the conversation, they can focus on having the conversation. So they're just about making the life easier for the person whose job it is to manage a relationship. And at the end of it, you've got a customer who's happy because you've got a focused conversation. You've got a business who's happy because they've got better compliance, and you've got the relationship manager in the financial business who's happier because they've just had a much more useful use of the last 60 minutes of their working life.
Yeah, I concur with that fully.
Yeah, it's fascinating, really. Let's talk about deploying this technology and what to look out for when bringing this kind of technology into your organisation. What impact does that have on not just customer experience, but also the teams, as you said, the agents and the supervisors? Who'd like to go first on that one? Jeff, do you want to talk about how you might best deploy a solution?
Yeah, no, sure. Yeah, no, happy to. So, the first thing is, and I don't want to, the combination of the Vonage, the Vonage API platform, Vonage, the contact center as a service platform that we also support, makes this really easy to bring the technology into play. And historically, speech recognition, one of the drawbacks was it was always a big professional services project. You hear talk of models needing extensive training to perform well in the particular use case that it's being deployed into. Again, Speechmatics has turned that on its head. We have a generic approach, which basically means there's no specific training of models for industry use cases. It's just really powerful out of the box, and we have the smarts to ensure that any use case is actually catered for. We then have tools which allow the easy tweaking of the language models, something called custom dictionary, so terms that are very industry specific, which are only going to be used by yourself. You have the opportunity to inject those at an API level in real time into your language model. But when this is deployed with Vonage, the Vonage API platform is designed to normalize all of the inputs from organizations like Speechmatics to allow a customer to easily deliver what are quite complex technical solutions with a plug and play approach. But I'll leave Mark to describe more in terms of how Vonage assists with that.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. That's a very good segue into what we do. If you look at how we deliver our technology, the there's effectively a gap in terms of what a customer really uses between the communications platform, API platform that we've got, and that customer experience that they're delivering. So you've got to consider how you close that gap. Now, there's many ways that we could have approached this, which could have included us building our own ASR technology, for example. And as a business, we decided actually there's some far smarter organisations out there that can develop this themselves. So rather than us moving up the stack and building that on top of our platform, what we've done is we've worked very closely with much smarter technology partners such as Speechmatics and tried to make it easy for them to connect their technology to ours. So for us, it's a broad platform play whereby we make it easy for the technology partners to attach themselves to us, and then we collectively talk around what that can then deliver to the end enterprise brand that we're working with. So for us, as I say, scale is important. Having those connectors into smarter technology platforms is super important, and then collectively we're then talking about a joined up customer experience to our end customers.
Great stuff. So it sounds like it's rather straightforward to get up and running on this solution. It's cloud delivered as a service. In terms of where the market's going and the demand for customer experience, isn't really going to slow ever, but or certainly to improve customer experience. In terms of where the market's going and the technology's going, Jeff, where do you see the product line kind of moving towards? Are we done, or do you see AI kind of playing a more enhanced role in the solution?
Yeah, no, sure. So we as we've gone through various investment rounds, etc., we've obviously been constantly asked where we feel the market is going. I genuinely feel we're now at that point where the technology, specifically our technology that we've developed, is of a point where it can now be used in genuine real life use cases at scale, and I don't think we've been there before. So I genuinely feel there's a good 5 to 10 years of just deploying the technology as it is today to really start to empower use cases that have only really been dreams and proof of concepts and not productionized. The obvious adjacent area for us is to then derive the same amount of meaning from technology sets such as video next. So that's an obvious adjacent area for us. We've got an amazing machine learning team here in Cambridge. We've expanded out to Brno in the Czech Republic and Chennai in India to give us more engineering scale as the business continues to grow, double year on year, in fact. So we'll certainly look at that innovation that advanced machine learning capability brings to us. And the next adjacent obvious area is video. And we're already starting to investigate how we apply our advanced machine learning teams and the lessons they've learned in their extensive voice background across now video. And that seems the next logical place for us to go, and where a lot of organisations seem to also be focusing in terms of trying to convert voice conversations into video conversations. Although I think the video conversation in terms of business to consumer is still where voice recognition was 10 years ago. And I think there's going to be a real lag between, like there was with voice recognition, that becoming usable technology on a daily basis that is useful to organisations and allows them to deliver a better customer experience. So video will be where we'll logically go next. But I genuinely think there's going to be that same lag as there has been in the B2C market with trying to convert voice into video.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are starting to see rapid adoption of cloud, contact center solutions now, aren't we? CCaaS, or contact center as a service. So you really need to be in the cloud to have this kind of technology. Is that fair to say?
No, we actually deliver on-prem capability as well. Sometimes if people want to control some of their valuable data assets, then there is a requirement for them to actually have what we call a client-hosted capability. So they actually keep control of their data and they process on site, quite often behind their own firewall. There's use cases that we support which are security services use cases, so very sensitive data. So it's not just contact center that we're involved in. We offer a broad range of use cases. Some of those do require an on-prem capability, but most of our delivery is via cloud and solutions which are supported by organisations like Vonage.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Mark, final question from me. In terms of what do you want to see from the speech technology marketplace? How do you see that kind of evolving going forward, and what do you want to see from Vonage's perspective?
Yeah, so I think Jeff touched on some of this in that it's no longer just a voice opportunity. If you look at our platform, we've got everything from messaging, social tools, through to voice and video. So Jeff, I think, is correct in that one of the obvious places is looking at how you derive meaning from video conversations, and that then takes you down a different path, because it's not just around the meaning of the call itself. You've got to start thinking about some biometrics and the like. You've got to start thinking about some of the business sides of it as well, because actually once you get into a visual communications channel, you're actually starting to talk about a complete redesign of some business processes as a result of the technology. So it becomes more complicated in a number of different ways when you move into the other channels. But from a customer perspective, they really don't care. They really don't care whether they're on a voice channel, a messaging channel, or a video channel. They just want the one that's most appropriate for them for that particular experience with their brand they're working with. And that's the really important thing for us, is that we just try to ensure that we can apply the technologies such as Speechmatics across as many of our platforms, as many channels on our platform as we possibly can. And I think that's where it's going for us. Artificial intelligence is just something. It is sitting across all of the channels on our platform and delivering that service for the end customer on the channel of their choice.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. The omni-channel piece, it seems to be a conversation I'm hearing more and more about. I mean, we've heard it for a long time, omni-channel, but it seems that this new decade is really going to deliver on that omni-channel promise. So it makes perfect sense that your technology sits across all those channels. So, well, I'd like to round up the session today. Thank you very, very much for getting involved today. I think some great insights and some kind of learnings around the technology that you provide. So Jeff, Mark, thank you very much for getting involved.
No problems.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
Thanks for your time. It's been fun.